I've spent over 60 years in Hollywood. I've seen behind every curtain, walked through every door, shaken hands with the most powerful people in the world. I've directed films that won Oscars, worked with legends, made movies that people still talk about decades later. But what I saw 3 nights ago in a dream, it changed everything I thought I knew about this town. And what Jesus showed me about the entertainment industry, it's gonna shock you just like it shocked me. Because I never imagined the battle that's really happening behind those studio doors. But before I tell you what he revealed, you need to understand something about me first. Look, I'm not a mystic. I'm not the kind of person who talks about visions and dreams. I'm a practical man. I've spent my life in a business that's about making things look real, creating illusions, telling stories that feel true even when they're fiction. So when I tell you about this dream, understand that I questioned it. I wrestled with it. I asked myself if I was losing my mind, but I can't deny what happened. It was a Tuesday night. Nothing special about it. I had had dinner alone, something simple, a steak and some vegetables. Read for a bit from a book on American history, then went to bed around 10. The Santa Ana winds were blowing through Carmel, making that low whistle through the pines that I've always found strangely comforting. My wife was away visiting our daughter. The house was quiet, just me and my thoughts. I fell asleep quickly. At my age, you learn to appreciate a good night's sleep. And then I found myself standing in a place I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't like regular dreams, where things shift and change and nothing makes sense, where you're in one place and suddenly you're somewhere else without reason. This was different. This was clear, focused, vivid in a way that made the waking world seem like a faded photograph in comparison. More real than real, if that makes any sense. I was standing in what looked like a massive theater, but it wasn't any theater I'd ever been in, and I've been in theaters all over the world. The seats went back as far as I could see, thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, rising up into darkness, and they were all empty. The silence was profound. Not just the absence of sound, but something deeper, like the silence before creation, before anything existed. The screen was enormous, dominating everything, stretching from floor to ceiling and beyond. It was blank, glowing with a soft light that didn't hurt my eyes. And then I felt him before I saw him. It's hard to explain. It was like the air changed. Like suddenly there was more gravity, more weight to existence. Like reality became more real. Jesus was standing next to me. I knew it was him the same way you know your own name. He wasn't dressed in robes like in the paintings. He wore simple clothes, working man's clothes. His face was weathered but ageless. And his eyes, I've looked into a lot of eyes in my life, directed a lot of actors, tried to capture truth on camera. But his eyes were different. They saw everything, every mistake I'd ever made, every prideful moment, every compromise, but there was no judgment in that gaze. Just understanding, just love. "Clint," he said, and his voice was gentle but carried weight like distant thunder. "I want to show you something." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He gestured toward the massive screen, and it flickered to life. What I saw on that screen, I wasn't prepared for it. Nobody could be. The first image was of a boardroom, high-rise building, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Los Angeles. I could see the city sprawling below, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the concrete and glass. Around a table sat 12 people, men and women in expensive suits, the kind of suits that cost more than most people make in a month. I recognized some of them, studio heads, streaming platform executives, producers whose names you'd know if I said them, people who control what millions, billions of people watch. They were talking about your quarterly projections, about market share, about competing with other platforms, business talk. Nothing unusual. But there was a 13th figure in the room, standing in the corner where the shadows were deepest. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, but as I watched I realized it was something else. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I knew it wasn't human. Something about the way it moved, the way the air seemed to darken and contract around it. Something about the wrongness of its presence. "Do you see him?" Jesus asked quietly. "Yes," I managed to say. "This is a real meeting," he said. "It happened 3 days ago. Watch." The shadow figure moved forward, and I watched as it whispered into the ear of the CEO at the head of the table. The man's expression changed, hardened. He started talking, laying out plans for the upcoming slate of films and shows. And with every decision he made, the shadow figure would nod approvingly. "Cancel that faith-based film," the CEO said. "Replace it with something edgier. I want content that pushes boundaries, that challenges traditional values." "Sir, we already made commitments to." "I don't care. Christianity is box office poison. Give me something that appeals to the modern audience." The shadow figure smiled. Jesus turned to me. "Do you understand what you're seeing? That thing that's influencing him?" "Not forcing," Jesus corrected. "Influencing, whispering, suggesting. Humans always have free will, Clint, but most don't realize there's a spiritual battle happening behind every decision, every creative choice, every script that gets greenlit or rejected." The scene on the screen changed. And what he showed me next made my blood run cold. And I was looking at a writer's room. 6 people sitting around brainstorming a new series. Young people, mostly talented people. You could see it in their eyes. The passion, the creativity, the genuine desire to tell meaningful stories. They had laptops open, whiteboards covered with notes and character arcs, coffee cups everywhere. The energy of creation, of bringing something new into the world. They seemed like good people, creative people, passionate about their work. The kind of people I've worked with my whole career. The kind of people I've been. But in the corner of the room, I saw more of those shadow figures, 3 of them this time, darker than the first, more aggressive in their movements. One whispered to a young writer, a woman, maybe 25 years old, with bright eyes and a notebook full of ideas. "Make the Christian character the villain. Make him a hypocrite, judgmental, hateful. That's what they really are. Show the truth." Another whispered to the showrunner, a man in his 30s who was clearly the leader. "More violence. Make it beautiful. Make it seductive. Make it art. Push the boundaries. That's how you win awards." The third one moved between them all like smoke. "This is art. This is important. You're not corrupting anyone. You're challenging them, pushing society forward. You're the good guys. The moral guardians are the real villains. You're on the right side of history." And I watched these creators, these human beings I might have worked with, might have directed, absorb these whispers like they were their own thoughts. They nodded enthusiastically, building on these dark suggestions, convincing themselves they were doing something profound. "This happens every day," Jesus said, and with sorrow in his voice. "In every studio, every writer's room, every production meeting. My enemy whispers lies, and talented people who could create beauty instead create poison." "Why don't they see it?" I asked. "Why don't they recognize what's happening?" "Because they've convinced themselves that there is no enemy, no devil, no spiritual realm. They think they're just artists expressing themselves freely. But Clint, you can't fight an enemy you don't believe exists." The screen changed again, and this time I saw something that hit even closer to home. What he showed me next was about my own past, and I wasn't ready for that. I saw myself, younger, maybe in my 40s, sitting at a meeting. I remembered the room. I remembered the day. It was 1995, maybe 1996. A director I'd worked with before was pitching a film that had spiritual themes, positive messages about redemption, about faith, about the existence of good and evil. It was a good script, well written, honest, but it had explicit Christian themes. And I watched my younger self shift uncomfortably in his chair. The director was passionate, explaining his vision, talking about how this could reach people who were struggling, who were looking for hope. And I watched myself, the me from 20-something years ago, listen politely, nod, and then deliver the killing blow. "It's too preachy," I heard myself say, and I remembered the exact tone I'd used. Dismissive. Final. Audiences don't want to be lectured to. They want entertainment, not a Sunday school lesson. This might play well in the Bible Belt, but it's not going to work nationwide. Jesus paused the scene, freezing my younger self mid-gesture. "Do you remember this day?" I did. I remembered it clearly. The film never got made. The director, a friend, had been disappointed but understanding. We'd never work together again. He'd moved into television, made a decent living, but that film, his passion project, never saw the light of day. And I'd forgotten about it within a week, moved on to the next project. "I thought I was just being practical," I said quietly, and my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. business-minded. That kind of content doesn't sell. I was protecting him from failure, doesn't it? Jesus asked, and his voice was gentle but firm. Or is that what the whispers taught you to believe? What the industry convinced you was true? Look, he showed me an alternate timeline, something I'd never seen. The same film, but released. It wasn't a massive blockbuster, but it touched people. I saw a woman in a theater crying during a scene, and then I saw her life afterward. She'd been on the verge of ending her own life that night. The film changed her mind. She went on to become a teacher, influenced hundreds of children, several of whom went on to do extraordinary things.
One film, Jesus said, one small film you dismissed as too preachy could have saved a life and changed hundreds more. Multiply that by every faith-affirming project that gets rejected, every positive message that gets watered down, every truth that gets compromised in the name of commercial viability.
I felt something break inside me. I didn't know. Most don't, he said gently. That's the tragedy. Good people making compromises, one small decision at a time, until they've helped build a machine that spreads darkness instead of light. Then he showed me something that gave me hope. The screen changed one final time. Now I saw modern Hollywood, but different. I saw writers resisting the whispers, creating content that was both excellent and uplifting. I saw executives making brave decisions to greenlight projects with positive messages. I saw actors using their platforms to speak truth. And most importantly, I saw the impact. Families watching together, conversations starting, hearts changing. A young man deciding not to end his life after watching a character overcome similar struggles. A father reconnecting with his daughter after a film reminded him what really mattered. This is what Hollywood was meant to be, Jesus said. Stories have power, Clint. You know that. You've spent your life telling them. Stories can reveal truth or hide it. They can lead people toward the light or into darkness. And right now, the balance is tilted heavily toward darkness. What can I do? I ask. I'm just one person, and I'm old now. My influence isn't what it used to be. He turned to me and smiled. It was a smile of such warmth that I felt it in my chest like sunlight. You're doing it right now. You're going to tell people what you saw. You're going to wake them up to the battle that's happening. And more importantly, you're going to call them to create differently, to choose differently, to recognize that every creative decision is a spiritual one. Will they listen? I asked. Some will, some won't. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to deliver the message. He put his hand on my shoulder, and I felt a warmth spread through my entire body. Tell them this, Clint. Hollywood isn't evil. The people in it aren't evil. But there is evil working through it, using it, corrupting it. And the only way to fight back is to recognize the battle, to pray before every creative meeting, to ask me what stories need to be told, to have the courage to tell truth even when it's not commercially popular. And then he told me something that I need you to hear. Tell him that I'm looking for warriors in the entertainment industry. I mean, not preachers, not people who make cheap religious content that only reaches people who already believe. I'm looking for excellent storytellers who understand craft, who can compete at the highest level, but who also recognize the spiritual dimension of their work. Tell them that every script is a sermon, whether they realize it or not. Every film is teaching something, promoting some view of the world, some understanding of human nature. The question is, what are you teaching? What are you promoting? Tell them that I'm not asking them to make everything explicitly Christian. I'm asking them to make things that are true, to show that actions have consequences, that evil is real and should be opposed, that love is more powerful than hate, that sacrifice matters, that there's more to life than what we can see and touch. And tell them this, the enemy wants them to believe that faith and excellence are opposites, that you can either make good art or make godly art, but not both. That's a lie. Some of the greatest art in human history was made by people of deep faith. It can be done. It should be done. It must be done. I was crying now. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I've cried maybe 3 times in my adult life, but standing there with Jesus, understanding the magnitude of what he was showing me, the tears just came. What about me? I asked. I've been part of the problem. I've made films that glorified violence, that treated faith as foolishness, that you're here now, he interrupted gently. That's what matters. You understand now, and you're going to use whatever time you have left to be part of the solution. And then I woke up. I was in my bed in Carmel, the dawn light just starting to come through the window, painting the walls in shades of gold and pink. The wind had died down, everything was quiet, but I could still feel his hand on my shoulder. I could still hear his voice resonating in my chest like a bell that had been struck. I lay there for a moment, disoriented, my heart pounding. The dream hadn't faded like dreams usually do. It was still there, every detail crystal clear, as if it had happened in the physical world, as if it was more real than the room I was lying in. I got up and I went to my desk. My hands were shaking slightly as I turned on the lamp and found a pen and paper, and I wrote down everything I could remember. Every word Jesus had spoken, every scene he'd shown me, the shadow figures, the boardroom, the writer's room, my own failure, the alternate timeline, the message of hope, all of it. I wrote for 2 hours straight, barely pausing. And when I was done, I had pages and pages of notes. And I've been wrestling with it for 3 days now, trying to decide if I should share this publicly, trying to decide if people would think I'd lost my mind, trying to decide if it even matters what people think. But here's the thing. I don't care anymore what people think. I really don't. I'm 94 years old. I've won Academy Awards. I've made money that I couldn't spend in 3 lifetimes. I've achieved everything this town says you're supposed to achieve. My name is on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I've worked with every major star you can think of. I've had the career people dream about. And none of it matters compared to this. None of it. Because there is a spiritual battle happening in Hollywood, in every creative industry really, but Hollywood's influence is massive. We're not just making movies and TV shows. We're shaping culture. We're influencing how billions of people think about love, about family, about right and wrong, about the meaning of life. We're teaching children what heroes look like. We're showing teenagers how to view relationships. We're giving adults frameworks for understanding the world. And right now, whether we realize it or not, many of those stories are leading people away from truth, away from light, away from Him. Not because everyone in Hollywood is evil. They're not. Most are good people with good intentions. But because there's a spiritual battle happening that most people don't even know exists. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you work in entertainment, I'm talking directly to you right now. Writer, director, actor, producer, executive, editor, cinematographer, sound designer, whatever you do, you're part of this. And you have a choice in every project, every scene, every line of dialogue, every creative decision. You can listen to the whispers that pull toward darkness. The whispers that tell you that shock value equals art, that degradation is edgy, that traditional values are oppressive, that faith is for the weak-minded. Or you can pray, ask for wisdom, and choose to create something that points toward light, something that's both excellent and truthful, something that entertains and elevates. It's not about being preachy. I want to be clear about that. I'm not asking you to turn every film into a church service. Jesus didn't ask for that. He asked for truth. He asked for stories that acknowledge that good and evil exist, that choices have consequences, that love is real and powerful, that sacrifice matters, that there's more to existence than what we can measure and quantify. Some of the greatest films ever made weren't explicitly religious, but they told the truth about human nature. They showed that heroism is real, that courage matters, that redemption is possible, that evil should be opposed, that love is worth fighting for. That's what we need more of. Not propaganda, not simplistic morality tales, but honest, excellent storytelling that doesn't shy away from truth. I don't know how many years I have left. Not many, probably. My body reminds me of that every morning, but I'm going to spend whatever time I have left trying to be part of the solution instead of the problem. I'm going to speak up for projects that deserve to be made. I'm going to encourage creators who are trying to do good work with good messages. I'm going to use whatever platform I have left to tell this story, this warning, and this hope to anyone who'll listen. Because Jesus showed me the truth. Hollywood is a battlefield. Every writer's room, every production meeting, every casting decision, every creative choice, it's all part of a larger war between light and darkness, between truth and lies, between stories that heal and stories that harm, and we get to choose which side we're fighting for. Not by being preachy, not by being judgmental, not by making low-quality content with good intentions, but by being excellent at our craft while staying true to what's right, by creating art that acknowledges the spiritual dimension of existence, by telling stories that reveal truth instead of obscuring it. That's the message Jesus gave me. That's what he showed me. And that's what I'm going to spend my remaining days trying to live out. Thank you for listening.